That's right. And the conspiracy is a distraction because the reality is worse than the conspiracy. So we need to deal with the reality of Black life and the condition of it in these times. Why are we dying disproportionately? Well, because America from day one basically put us in a position of subordinate status, second-class status, and Corona is almost like at the end of that process, just waiting and saying, come on, after all of the neglect, all of the housing issues, putting people in cancer clusters of, with asthma and things of that sort, Corona is just coming through like the death angel in the Bible and just going through each house, seeing weaknesses and then exposing them. So that's real. Black people are dying. Black people are dying disproportionately. So why do I got to worry about a hypothetical conspiracy? My point is the fact that we are dying disproportionately in Chicago, in Detroit, in every state, including California, although less here than anywhere else in the country, the pattern of Black disproportionality in the Corona deaths. But it's happening all over America. Why? Because the pre-existing condition of being Black. Now, did you hear that? There's a pre-existing condition of being Black in America that Corona has exposed to all, and we don't even understand it. Everybody's confused. Like, first, Corona was just a pandemic. Then all of a sudden, it put on a Black mask, and it put on blackface. So now Corona is in blackface, and the American establishment from Georgia, where you have 30% of the Black population, and places like Atlanta, trying to open back up, because when they calculated that it was Black people and old people that were dying, they said, well, capitalism, you might as well kill yourself so that capitalism can survive. That's the truth of what's being said by governors, by congressmen, by people in Texas. Let's all die to save our capitalism. Let some of the elders die, the most vulnerable, like I think it was Bill O'Reilly or one of them that said, well, they were already old anyway, on the verge of death. And this kind of immorality is why we scream and why we make mistakes sometimes in our passion to address these issues. That's the reality. And so for Black people, when you talk about in city by city, in places like Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, the Bronx, Columbus, Cleveland, throughout red and blue America, Black America is suffering disproportionately from Corona and the COVID-19 pandemic disease. And so just being Black, because of the condition of how we live in housing, the conditions in terms of our relationships with the medical industry, and how many people, many experts have talked about medical apartheid. There's a book to that extent that documents it, of the problem of inequality in health deliverance and service. Obama's major policy accomplishment was the Affordable Health Care Act that he felt would have a rising tide effect on Black America. Quite clearly, being everyday Black and not from the affluent classes predispose you for whatever it is that Corona does to human beings more than any other group right now. And that to me signals that Black people have being Black in America is a pre-existing condition for any kind of malady, any kind of crisis. If it's a hurricane in Puerto Rico, you will suffer worse than the white folk and the other folk who aren't white in Texas. But because you are a brown or Black island country, you will be have toilet paper thrown to you disrespectfully or paper towels, but you will not be treated with dignity. And so many times, it seems to me that we need to be able to identify issues and behaviors and mistakes in leadership at the national level as it pertains to this this virus. And I'm not trying to address any of the medical scientific aspects of it, because that's not what we're talking about. This is the reality. Obama was the disruption. This is the norm, the quotidian, the banality, as Hannah Arendt calls it, of racial evil every day. That's the norm. Obama was the disruption, and now we're back at the norm. The norm is racism. King was the breakthrough. And then we went back to the homeostasis of racism. The homeostasis of racism is everyday living, so that when anything develops, whether it's HIV or corona, you end up hit disproportionately. That's the everyday violence of being Black in America, without police, without prison bars. That's just waking up. And then you add modern crises or realities, and then you end up in the predicament that so many of our people are in disproportionately. And it's been a slow drip, Maurice. Slow drip of, first it was all of the questions of China's origins, the bats, the wet markets, what is corona, how does it relate to other pandemics and viruses of the past, all of these, very pressing questions. But when you finish, you have to ask yourself, how is it that all of a sudden this thing just started killing Black America? And this goes for why reparations are necessary. The everyday existence of being Black in America in poverty or in struggle or in working class is why we have the blues, and why we came up with the blues, because that's our everyday life. Being Black in America is blue. And then you have to live Black with your blues. And we do that with faith. We do that with music. We do that with friends. We do that with extracurricular activities like everybody else. But when things go south in America, typically, when it comes to racial reaction, Black people get shot up at churches in Charleston, and by the police in the street, and by other young African-American men and women, sadly, as well. So we catch hell from every angle. And then you try to find peace in it, and then you look up one day, and all of a sudden there's a pandemic going on. And you're living your life like everybody else, thinking, I'm 22, I'm 24, I don't have to worry about this. And then all of a sudden they're saying, well, no, it's not just age, it's actually affecting all different kinds of demographics. And oh, by the way, all of a sudden it's taking out, well-known African-American people. When Rudy Gobert, the NBA player, was diagnosed, it shut down the NBA in March, and that's when everything got serious. So even when the NBA, as a symbol of Black labor and art, I think NBA is art too. It was not, I'm trying to say, a tennis match in Wimbledon that got everybody's attention. It was the Black NBA. When Rudy Gobert and his teammate got it, that all of a sudden really made Corona, excuse me, I almost said Katrina, that really made Corona a real, and maybe I'm making that mistake because they're equally disastrous for Black people. Maybe that's why my brain kept saying Corona.
Yeah, exactly. And the response is no different, it seems to me, in right. terms of
yeah, you're doing a good job, You're doing a good job, Brownie. You're doing a good job, Brownie. And Donald Trump is saying we got a 10 out of 10. So there's a direct analogy to this incompetence.